The crystalline halls of the Zephyrian War Academy echoed with the rhythmic clacking of chitinous feet as Commander Vexithara made her way to the central briefing chamber. Her four arms moved in perfect synchronization, each appendage adorned with the ceremonial battle scarring that marked her as one of the galaxy's most feared warriors. The amber glow from her compound eyes reflected off the polished walls as she reviewed the tactical display floating before her. Today marked a significant moment in galactic history. The Terran species recently discovered on the outer rim of the Milky Way had been scheduled for what the Galactic Council termed a peaceful integration assessment. In reality, it was a standard procedure where primitive species were given a demonstration of superior military might before being absorbed into the greater galactic community as a client race. Vexithara had overseen 47 such demonstrations in her career. Each followed the same predictable pattern. The newly discovered species would send their best warriors, usually primitive beings wielding chemical projectile weapons or crude energy devices. The demonstration would last perhaps 30 minutes before the primitives surrendered, awed by the technological superiority of their galactic neighbors. The briefing chamber filled with the low harmonics of approaching footsteps as other commanders arrived. General Korthnax, a massive draconian whose scales shifted color with his emotional state, settled his bulk onto a reinforced platform. His eyes, each the size of a human head, regarded the tactical display with mild interest. "Another integration day," he rumbled, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had personally conquered 17 star systems. "Which backwater world are we enlightening this time?" Vexithara manipulated the holographic display with precise movements of her secondary arms. "A small blue planet in what they call the Sol system. The inhabitants refer to themselves as humans, standard carbon-based life forms, though our scouts report some interesting biological variations." The display shifted to show detailed scans of Earth. Green and blue swirled across the planetary surface, interrupted by brown land masses. Cities dotted the continents like glowing nerve clusters, connected by intricate transportation networks that suggested a moderately advanced civilization. "Interesting," mused Admiral Zlakthar, whose gaseous form shifted within his environmental suit. "They appear to have developed spaceflight, though their vessels are remarkably primitive. Chemical rockets, nuclear fission reactors, basic electromagnetic propulsion. How quaint." Vexithara zoomed in on various human settlements. "Our analysis indicates they are currently in the early stages of planetary unification. Multiple nation-states, frequent conflicts, resource competition. Classic pre-contact behaviors. They should integrate smoothly once they understand their position in the galactic hierarchy." The strategic assessment data scrolled past in neat columns of alien script. Human population, approximately 8 billion. Military capabilities, fragmented but extensive, with various factions possessing nuclear weapons and conventional forces. Technological development, comparable to most species at first contact, though with some unusual innovations in computing and materials science. "Their delegation should be arriving shortly," Vexithara continued. "Standard protocol applies. We'll demonstrate the futility of resistance through a series of simulated combat scenarios. The humans will deploy their finest warriors and equipment, we'll showcase our superiority, and they'll accept client status within the Galactic Council." General Korthnax's scales shifted to a pleased purple. "I do enjoy these demonstrations. There's something satisfying about watching primitive species realize their place in the cosmic order. It's educational for them and entertaining for us." The chamber's atmospheric processors hummed as they adjusted for the incoming human delegation. According to the environmental readings, humans required a remarkably narrow range of atmospheric conditions to survive. Oxygen-nitrogen atmosphere, moderate pressure, specific temperature ranges. Such biological fragility usually indicated a species that evolved in stable, protected environments. Vexithara pulled up the files on the human delegation. 5 individuals had been selected to represent their species. The profiles made for interesting reading. General Sarah Chen, military strategist from the North American Federation. Colonel James Morrison, Special Forces operative with extensive combat experience. Dr. Elena Vasquez, engineer specializing in defensive systems. Lieutenant Marcus Thompson, pilot with numerous decorations. Professor David Kim, xenobiologist tasked with documenting first contact. "They've sent soldiers and scientists," Admiral Zalakthar observed. "How predictably primitive. They still view first contact through the lens of potential conflict rather than inevitable submission." The main viewing screen activated, showing the approach of a human vessel. The ship was a study in functional design, lacking the elegant curves and organic flowing lines that marked advanced galactic civilizations. Instead, it presented angles and geometric shapes, with visible technological components mounted externally rather than integrated into the hull structure. "Their spacecraft design philosophy is aggressively utilitarian," Vexithara noted. "No aesthetic considerations, no harmony with natural forces, pure mechanical functionality." The human ship docked with practiced efficiency at the Academy's visitor berth. Automated systems scanned the vessel, confirming that it carried no weapons beyond personal sidearms. The energy signatures matched the expected primitive fusion reactor, and the hull composition showed basic titanium steel alloys reinforced with carbon fiber matrices. Within minutes, the human delegation had disembarked and was being escorted to the briefing chamber by a squad of ceremonial guards. Vexithara activated the internal monitors to observe their guests during the approach. The humans moved with surprising coordination despite their obvious differences in size and build. General Chen, a compact woman with graying hair and alert dark eyes, maintained a steady pace while constantly scanning her surroundings. Colonel Morrison, tall and lean with numerous visible scars, walked with the controlled movements of a professional warrior. Dr. Vasquez moved with the confident stride of someone accustomed to working with dangerous equipment, while Lieutenant Thompson's eyes tracked every detail of the alien architecture. Professor Kim took notes on a primitive electronic device while stealing glances at their alien escorts. "They're studying us as much as we're studying them," General Korthnax observed with amusement. "How refreshingly naive." The delegation entered the briefing chamber with formal military precision. General Chen stepped forward and offered what appeared to be a ritualistic gesture, extending her right hand toward Vexithara. "Commander, I'm General Sarah Chen, representing the United Earth Defense Coalition. We appreciate this opportunity for peaceful contact between our species." Vexithara studied the extended appendage before carefully grasping it with one of her secondary hands. The human grip was firm, warm, and surprisingly strong for such a small being. "Welcome to the Zephyrian War Academy, General Chen. I am Commander Vexithara. We trust this demonstration will prove educational." The human delegation arranged themselves in what appeared to be a defensive formation, though they maintained relaxed postures. Vexithara activated the tactical displays, showing the prepared combat scenarios. "As is traditional with newly contacted species, we will conduct a series of simulated combat exercises. This will allow you to understand the military capabilities available within the Galactic Council and help determine the most appropriate role for humanity in our community." General Chen's expression remained neutral, though Vexithara's enhanced sensors detected slight increases in the human's heart rate and adrenaline levels. "We understand this is standard procedure, Commander. Our people have prepared for various scenarios." The first simulation materialized in the chamber's holographic systems. A standard urban combat environment appeared, complete with destructible buildings, civilian populations, and strategic objectives. The scenario was designed to showcase advanced tactical capabilities while demonstrating the futility of primitive resistance. You may deploy up to 50 of your finest warriors, Vexathara explained. Our forces will be limited to a single squad of standard infantry. The objective is control of the urban center within 1 hour standard time. Colonel Morrison stepped forward. Rules of engagement? Standard combat protocols. Simulated casualties will be recorded, but actual injury is prevented by the safety systems. Your forces may utilize any equipment available to your current military capabilities. The humans exchanged glances before General Chen nodded. We accept the parameters. What followed challenged every assumption the galactic observers had made about primitive species. Instead of the expected chaotic charge or crude defensive positions, the human forces materialized in the simulation with startling organization. 50 soldiers appeared throughout the urban environment in carefully coordinated positions. They carried weapons that the galactic database classified as primitive chemical projectile systems, but their deployment patterns showed sophisticated understanding of urban warfare. The Zephyrian squad, equipped with standard plasma rifles and personal energy shields, advanced into the urban zone with confident efficiency. Their sensors showed human positions scattered throughout the area, exactly as expected from an inferior force attempting to compensate for technological disadvantages through numbers. The first engagement occurred when the Zephyrian point scout encountered a human patrol. The alien warrior raised his energy weapon, confident in his superior equipment and training. The plasma bolt discharged toward the human position, where it struck nothing but empty air. The humans had moved, not retreated, not scattered, but executed a coordinated tactical maneuver that placed them in advantageous firing positions while the Zephyrian was focused on their previous location. Chemical projectiles struck the alien warrior's energy shield from 3 different angles simultaneously, overwhelming the defensive system through concentrated fire rather than superior technology. Vexathara's compound eyes widened as she observed the tactical display. The humans weren't fighting like primitives. They moved like veterans, coordinating their actions with a level of sophistication that suggested extensive combat experience. The Zephyrian squad regrouped and advanced more cautiously, but the humans adapted their tactics accordingly. They used the urban environment with remarkable creativity, turning civilian structures into killing fields and utilizing primitive explosive devices with devastating effectiveness. "How are they anticipating our movements?" General Korthnax demanded, his scales shifting to an agitated orange. "Their technology is inferior, but their tactical responses are far beyond expected parameters." Professor Kim, who had remained silent during the initial exchange, spoke up. "Commander, may I ask about your previous integration assessments? How many of the contacted species had extensive experience with large-scale warfare?" Vexathara paused the simulation. "Most species develop beyond the need for military conflict before achieving spaceflight. Why do you ask? Humanity has been engaged in almost continuous warfare for our entire recorded history. We've had thousands of years to develop tactical and strategic thinking. Every human military academy studies conflicts dating back millennia, analyzing successful and failed strategies across every conceivable terrain and situation." The simulation resumed, and the Zephyrian squad found themselves steadily outmaneuvered. The humans employed tactics that seemed to violate conventional military doctrine, using apparent weaknesses as strengths and turning every disadvantage into an opportunity. When the hour concluded, the urban center remained under human control. The Zephyrian squad had been systematically eliminated through superior tactics, despite their technological advantages. Admiral Zalakthar's gaseous form roiled within his environmental suit. "This is unprecedented. No primitive species has ever achieved victory in the integration scenarios." General Chen's expression remained professionally neutral. "Commander, we appreciate the educational opportunity. When would you like to proceed with the next demonstration?" Vexithara stared at the tactical display, her worldview shifting like tectonic plates. These weren't primitives to be easily absorbed into the galactic community. These were warriors who had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill each other more efficiently. And they were just getting started. The War Academy's advanced simulation chambers hummed with increased power as Commander Vexithara prepared the second demonstration. The first scenario had shaken the confidence of every galactic observer present, but standard protocol demanded a more comprehensive assessment. If the humans had somehow achieved an unexpected victory through luck or exploitation of specific scenario parameters, the next test would reveal their true limitations. General Korthnax's scales had shifted through a spectrum of colors during the post-scenario analysis, finally settling on a deep crimson that indicated serious concern. Perhaps we underestimated their tactical capabilities, he admitted reluctantly. The next scenario should provide a more accurate assessment. Vexithara activated the holographic controls with sharp, precise movements. Her earlier confidence had evaporated, replaced by professional curiosity and a growing sense of unease. The humans stood in the center of the briefing chamber, maintaining the same relaxed alertness they had displayed throughout the first demonstration. General Chen consulted with her team in low voices, their conversation conducted in their primitive verbal language rather than the more efficient direct neural interface used by advanced species. The second scenario will test your capabilities in space-based combat, Vexithara announced. You will command a small fleet of your current spacecraft design against a single Zephyrian battlecruiser. This will demonstrate the technological gap between your current capabilities and galactic standard military equipment. Dr. Vasquez stepped forward, her engineer's mind clearly analyzing the parameters. What are the specific limitations on our fleet composition and the victory conditions? You may deploy up to 12 vessels based on your current technological specifications. The objective is to disable or destroy the battlecruiser within 2 hours. The Zephyrian vessel will be operating under standard engagement protocols with a full crew complement. Lieutenant Thompson, whose pilot training made him the obvious fleet commander for this scenario, studied the tactical displays. Rules of engagement regarding civilian populations or neutral vessels? Admiral Zlakthar's gaseous form swirled with what might have been amusement. There are no civilian populations in deep space combat scenarios, human. This is pure military engagement between your primitive vessels and superior galactic technology. The simulation chamber expanded into a three-dimensional representation of a star system, complete with orbital mechanics, gravitational fields, and realistic space environment conditions. The human fleet materialized at the system's edge, 12 vessels arranged in what appeared to be a standard formation for their technological level. The ships were enlarged versions of the vessel that had brought the delegation to the Academy. Utilitarian design, visible technological components, and the same aggressive functionality that marked human engineering. Each vessel carried chemical rocket propulsion, primitive fusion reactors, and weapon systems based on kinetic projectiles and basic energy weapons. The Zephyrian battlecruiser appeared near the system's central star, a sleek predator of advanced engineering. Its organic curves flowed seamlessly from bow to stern, with integrated weapons systems and energy shields that represented thousands of years of technological development. The vessel's quantum drives provided instantaneous acceleration, while its plasma weaponry could vaporize asteroids from across a star system. Engagement begins now, Vexithara announced. The human fleet immediately dispersed in a pattern that violated conventional space combat doctrine. Instead of maintaining formation for mutual support, the 12 vessels scattered throughout the star system using seemingly random vectors. Several ships headed directly toward the inner planets, while others accelerated toward the outer system's asteroid fields. General Korthnax's scales shifted to puzzled yellow. What tactical doctrine are they following? They're abandoning formation and mutual fire support. The battlecruiser can engage them individually and destroy them piecemeal. The Zephyrian battlecruiser, commanded by the Academy's advanced tactical computer, selected the nearest human vessel and accelerated toward intercept. The alien ship's quantum drives provided overwhelming speed advantage, closing the distance in minutes rather than hours. Plasma bolts lanced across the void toward the human ship, which responded by executing violent evasive maneuvers that should have liquefied any biological crew. The primitive vessel twisted and rolled through three-dimensional space with an agility that seemed impossible for its technological level. How are they achieving those acceleration tolerances? Dr. Vasquez asked quietly. Their inertial compensation systems should be far too primitive for those maneuvers. Professor Kim smiled grimly. Humans have been developing techniques to survive extreme acceleration since we first started flying. Our pilots train extensively to function under conditions that would incapacitate most species. Plus, we've learned to build machines that can take tremendous punishment and keep fighting. The human vessel managed to avoid the first plasma barrage, but the battlecruiser's superior speed and firepower made the outcome inevitable. The second volley struck the human ship's hull, overwhelming its primitive energy shields and causing massive system failures throughout the vessel. But instead of surrendering or attempting to escape, the damaged human ship turned directly toward the battlecruiser and accelerated at maximum velocity. "What is it doing?" Admiral Zlakthar demanded. "The vessel is clearly disabled. Why isn't the crew requesting rescue?" Colonel Morrison's scarred face showed a predator's smile. "Because that ship isn't disabled. It's a missile now." The human vessel struck the battlecruiser's energy shields at tremendous velocity, the kinetic impact sending shockwaves through both ships. The collision damaged the Zephyrian vessel's forward shield generators and disrupted its tactical systems for several crucial seconds. During those seconds, the other 11 human ships executed their real attack plan. The vessels that had scattered to the inner system revealed their purpose as they used planetary gravity wells to achieve slingshot trajectories directly toward the battlecruiser. Each ship had calculated complex orbital mechanics to arrive simultaneously from different vectors, creating a coordinated assault that overwhelmed the alien vessel's targeting systems. The ships that had headed for the asteroid fields emerged with improvised kinetic weapons. Chunks of metallic rock accelerated to tremendous velocities by primitive magnetic launching systems. The asteroids arrived at the battlecruiser's position moments before the slingshot vessels, forcing the alien ship to divide its defensive fire between multiple target types. "Impossible," Vexathera whispered. "They're using the entire star system as a weapons platform. How did they calculate the orbital mechanics so precisely with primitive computers?" General Chen answered without taking her eyes from the tactical display. "Humans have been calculating orbital trajectories for centuries. We've sent probes to every planet in our system and several moons. Navigation in three-dimensional space under gravitational influences is basic mathematics for us." The battlecruiser's advanced tactical systems struggled to prioritize targets as human ships, asteroids, and debris converged from all directions. The alien vessel's superior technology allowed it to destroy most of the incoming threats, but the sheer volume of coordinated attacks overwhelmed its defensive capabilities. 3 human ships survived to execute close-range attacks on the now-damaged battlecruiser. Their primitive kinetic weapons and chemical explosives proved devastatingly effective against specific subsystems. Instead of attempting to destroy the entire vessel, the humans targeted critical components: power distribution nodes, sensor arrays, and weapons control systems. The battlecruiser found itself effectively blinded and disarmed, drifting powerless in the void while the surviving human vessels maintained weapons lock from multiple angles. The simulation concluded with the Zephyrian vessel's surrender after 1 hour and 37 minutes. The briefing chamber fell silent except for the ambient hum of atmospheric processors. The galactic observers stared at the tactical displays, trying to process what they had witnessed. A primitive species, using inferior technology, had defeated one of the galaxy's most advanced warships through superior tactics and ruthless determination. They sacrificed their own ships, Admiral Zlakthar said finally. Multiple vessels were destroyed or severely damaged in the attack. What kind of species accepts such casualties for military objectives? Lieutenant Thompson answered with quiet intensity. Every human military teaches the same principle. Mission first, people always. But sometimes mission completion requires sacrifice. Our crews volunteered for those assignments knowing the risks. Vexathera manipulated the holographic controls with trembling appendages. There is one final demonstration. Ground assault against a fortified position. This scenario will test your species' ability to coordinate large-scale operations against prepared defenses. The simulation chamber reconfigured once again, creating a planetary surface environment. Rolling hills covered in vegetation led toward a massive fortress complex, complete with energy barriers, automated defense systems, and elevated firing positions. The stronghold represented the pinnacle of galactic defensive engineering, designed to withstand assault by technologically advanced forces. You may deploy up to 500 personnel with appropriate equipment, Vexathara explained. The objective is to breach the fortress and secure the central command structure within 4 hours. The defenders will consist of 200 Zephyrian elite warriors with full defensive support systems. General Chen studied the fortress through the tactical displays, her expression revealing nothing of her thoughts. The massive structure dominated the landscape, its towering walls bristling with energy weapons and sensor arrays. Multiple defensive perimeters created overlapping fields of fire, while underground tunnels allowed rapid repositioning of defenders. Any restrictions on our equipment or tactics? Colonel Morrison asked. You may utilize any weapons or strategies available to your current technological level. Chemical explosives, kinetic weapons, and basic energy systems are permitted. The human delegation conferred briefly before General Chen nodded acceptance. We understand the parameters. 500 human soldiers materialized across the landscape in positions that initially appeared random. Like the previous scenarios, the humans seemed to be violating basic military doctrine by spreading their forces across a wide area rather than concentrating for a focused assault. The Zephyrian defenders, positioned throughout the fortress complex, activated their energy shields and powered up defensive systems. Automated plasma cannons tracked potential approach routes, while sensor arrays provided complete battlefield awareness. The alien warriors carried weapons that could penetrate most known armor systems and possessed personal energy shields capable of deflecting primitive projectile attacks. The human assault began with a massive artillery barrage from positions concealed throughout the surrounding terrain. Chemical explosives and kinetic projectiles rained down on the fortress in carefully coordinated waves, each strike designed to overwhelm specific defensive systems rather than cause general destruction. Crude but effective, General Korthnax observed, though their bombardment will be insufficient to breach the energy barriers. The artillery barrage ceased as suddenly as it had begun, and for a moment the battlefield fell silent. Then, the real attack commenced. Human soldiers emerged from concealed positions throughout the landscape, moving in coordinated groups toward the fortress from dozens of different directions simultaneously. They carried equipment that appeared primitive by galactic standards, but their tactical movements showed the same sophisticated planning that had marked the previous demonstrations. Instead of charging directly at the fortress walls, the humans executed a complex series of feints and diversions. Small groups drew defensive fire while larger formations moved through dead zones in the sensor coverage. Teams of soldiers carried portable devices that generated electromagnetic interference, disrupting the automated defense systems and forcing the Zephyrian defenders to rely on manual targeting. The fortress's energy barriers flickered and failed as human engineer teams detonated precisely placed charges at the power distribution nodes identified during the artillery bombardment. The defensive perimeters, designed to channel attackers into kill zones, became liability as the humans demonstrated their ability to scale, tunnel under, or blast through any obstacle in their path. Zephyrian elite warriors found themselves facing opponents who fought with a combination of technological capability and primitive savagery that defied classification. Humans equipped with chemical projectile weapons managed to overwhelm energy shields through concentrated fire, while teams with simple explosive devices disabled advanced defensive positions through suicidal courage. The human assault reached the fortress walls in multiple locations simultaneously, with soldiers using improvised climbing equipment and portable explosives to breach supposedly impregnable defenses. Inside the complex, close-quarters combat revealed the true nature of human warfare. The galactic observers watched in stunned silence as human soldiers demonstrated fighting techniques that combined modern tactical awareness with aggressive physical combat. Humans who had exhausted their ammunition continued fighting with bladed weapons and their bare hands, showing a level of personal violence that shocked species accustomed to clean, technological warfare. The fortress fell in 2 hours and 53 minutes. General Chen stood in the briefing chamber, surrounded by the wreckage of every assumption the galactic community had held about primitive species. Her expression remained professional, but Vexithara detected satisfaction in the human's posture. "Commander," General Chen said quietly, "when would you like to discuss the terms of Earth's integration into the Galactic Council?" Vexithara's compound eyes reflected the tactical displays, still showing the smoking ruins of the impregnable fortress. "I believe," she said slowly, "that conversation will require a significant revision of our standard protocols." The emergency council session convened in the highest chamber of the Galactic Senate, its crystalline walls pulsing with the nervous energy of species who had never before questioned their place in the cosmic hierarchy. Representatives from 47 different civilizations filled the amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, harmonics, and electromagnetic pulses that the universal translators struggled to process simultaneously. High Chancellor Keth Maran, whose ancient form had overseen galactic affairs for over 3 centuries, called the assembly to order with a gesture of his primary manipulator appendages. His species, the ethereals, had achieved transcendence of physical form millennia ago, existing as beings of pure energy contained within elaborate mechanical bodies. When an ethereal called an emergency session, the galaxy listened. "Fellow members of the Council," his voice resonated through quantum harmonics rather than crude acoustic waves, "we gather to address the unprecedented situation arising from first contact with the species known as humans. Commander Vexithara will present her assessment." Vexithara approached the central platform, her forearms trembling slightly as she activated the holographic displays. The events at the War Academy had shattered not just her professional confidence, but her fundamental understanding of how the universe operated. The tactical recordings played in perfect detail, showing impossible victory after impossible victory achieved by a supposedly primitive species. "Honored council members," she began, "the integration assessment of the human species has produced results that require immediate strategic revision of our contact protocols. In 3 separate military scenarios designed to demonstrate galactic superiority, human forces achieved total victory despite significant technological disadvantages." Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembled representatives. Ambassador Threxnall of the Hegemony Coalition, his massive bulk supported by gravitic compensators, spoke first. Commander, surely these results represent equipment malfunction or scenario miscalibration. No species achieves spaceflight without evolving beyond primitive military thinking. The holographic displays showed the urban combat scenario in devastating detail. Human soldiers moved through the simulated environment with deadly precision, their chemical projectile weapons somehow overcoming energy shields and advanced armor through concentrated tactical application. Every movement showed purpose, every action supported a greater strategic goal. Our analysis confirms all equipment functioned within normal parameters, Vex Thera replied. The humans achieved victory through superior tactical doctrine and an apparent willingness to accept casualties that would be unacceptable to any civilized species. Council Representative Zithara, speaking for the Collective Mind Network, projected her thoughts directly into the chamber's neural interface system. Define willingness to accept casualties, Commander. The space combat scenario began playing, showing 12 primitive human vessels scattering across an entire star system before converging in a coordinated assault that sacrificed multiple ships to achieve tactical advantage. The galactic observers watched in silence as human crews deliberately flew damaged vessels into enemy positions, converting their spacecraft into kinetic weapons. Human military doctrine appears to prioritize mission completion over individual survival, Vex Thera explained. They demonstrate a level of personal sacrifice that suggests either extremely sophisticated motivational conditioning or fundamental psychological differences from known galactic species. High Chancellor Kethmaron's energy form flickered with what might have been concern. Show us their ground assault capabilities. The fortress scenario materialized in the chamber's holographic systems, and the assembled representatives witnessed 500 humans systematically dismantling defenses that had never been breached in 10,000 years of galactic warfare. The humans fought with a combination of technological competence and primitive savagery that challenged every assumption about the relationship between advancement and violence. "They tunnel," whispered Ambassador Kraloth of the pacified territories. "They actually tunnel under energy barriers like primitive burrowing creatures, but with sophisticated planning and coordination. And they scale walls," added Representative Fluxandra, "using simple mechanical devices and physical strength to overcome barriers designed to stop advanced assault vehicles." The most disturbing scenes showed human soldiers continuing to fight after being wounded, using improvised weapons when their equipment failed, and demonstrating close combat techniques that involved direct physical contact with enemies. Species accustomed to warfare, conducted at safe distances through technological intermediaries, found themselves watching beings who seemed genuinely comfortable with personal violence. Council member Vorthagnan, whose species had achieved peace through mandatory emotional dampening, requested clarification. "Commander, our psychological analysis suggests these humans experience something called adrenaline response during combat situations. Please explain this biological function." Dr. Vasquez, who had been observing the proceedings from the visitors' gallery, was granted permission to address the council. She approached the central platform with the same confident stride she had maintained throughout the demonstrations. "Honored council members," she began, "adrenaline is a biochemical response that enhances human physical and mental performance during stressful situations. When threatened, our bodies automatically increase strength, speed, pain tolerance, and cognitive processing. We literally become more capable of fighting when fighting becomes necessary." The revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. Ambassador Threxnall's translator unit struggled to process his species' expression of horror. "You mean your combat effectiveness increases under stress? Most civilized species experience decreased performance when facing danger." "That's correct," Dr. Vasquez confirmed. "Humans evolved as persistence hunters and tribal warriors. Our biology is optimized for extended conflict situations. Fear makes us stronger, not weaker." Professor Kim joined Dr. Vasquez on the platform, carrying his primitive electronic device loaded with historical documentation. If I may address the Council, our species' relationship with warfare extends throughout our evolutionary history. We have records of continuous military conflict dating back over 5,000 years, with technological innovation driven primarily by military necessity. The holographic displays shifted to show human historical data. Images of ancient warriors wielding bronze weapons gave way to medieval knights in armor, then to modern soldiers carrying chemical projectile rifles. The progression showed consistent technological advancement, but the underlying human capacity for organized violence remained constant. We estimate that over 90% of human technological development has been motivated by military applications, Professor Kim continued. Our computers, our rocket technology, our materials science, even our medical advances stem from research conducted to enhance combat effectiveness. General Chen rose from the visitors section and approached the platform. The assembled galactic representatives had granted the human delegation full diplomatic recognition after witnessing their military capabilities, an unprecedented decision that reflected their growing respect for Earth's potential. Honored Council, General Chen began, I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding about the nature of humanity's integration into the galactic community. We did not come here seeking protection or guidance from more advanced civilizations. We came here as equals, offering our capabilities in service of mutual cooperation. High Chancellor Keth Moran's energy form pulsed with increasing intensity. General Chen, please clarify your species' intentions regarding galactic membership. Humans seek partnership, not client status, General Chen replied. We offer our military expertise, our technological innovation, and our scientific knowledge in exchange for access to galactic trade, cultural exchange, and joint exploration opportunities. We propose alliance, not absorption. The chamber erupted in dozens of different forms of communication as representatives struggled to process this departure from 10,000 years of galactic expansion protocol. Never before had a newly contacted species possessed the confidence to negotiate from a position of strength. Ambassador Threxnal's massive form shifted on his platform. General Chen, you speak of military expertise, but surely you understand that galactic civilization has evolved beyond the need for primitive warfare. We maintain defense forces primarily for exploration and emergency response. Colonel Morrison stepped forward, his scarred features reflecting years of combat experience. With respect, Ambassador, our analysis of galactic history suggests otherwise. We've identified 17 major conflicts within the past millennium, involving species that supposedly achieved post-warfare civilization centuries ago. The tactical displays shifted to show stellar maps highlighting areas of recent galactic conflict. Morrison's primitive electronic device interfaced seamlessly with the advanced holographic systems, displaying information that sent ripples of surprise through the assembled representatives. The Hegemony Coalition's expansion into Sector 7, the ethereal intervention in the Keth Moran uprising, the collective mind's forcible integration of 12 non-compliant species. You call these peacekeeping operations, but they represent military action on scales that dwarf most human conflicts. High Chancellor Keth Moran's energy form dimmed slightly. Colonel Morrison, those operations were conducted under strict ethical guidelines to minimize casualties and ensure rapid conflict resolution. Honored Chancellor, Colonel Morrison replied. Human military doctrine encompasses ethical guidelines as well, but our approach emphasizes decisive action over prolonged, low-intensity operations. We've found that overwhelming force applied with surgical precision often results in fewer total casualties than extended humane interventions. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The humans weren't proposing to abandon warfare. They were suggesting they could conduct it more efficiently than species with thousands of years more technological development. Lieutenant Thompson joined the growing human presence on the central platform. If I may demonstrate our approach to conflict resolution through a hypothetical scenario? The holographic systems activated at his touch, creating a three-dimensional representation of a typical galactic peacekeeping operation. The scenario showed a rebellious colony world surrounded by a blockade of advanced vessels, with negotiations dragging on for months while civilian populations suffered under economic restrictions. Standard galactic doctrine, Thompson explained, emphasizes gradual pressure and extended diplomatic negotiation to achieve compliance with minimal direct conflict. The blockade eventually succeeds, but requires significant resources over extended time frames. The scenario shifted to show human tactical doctrine applied to the same situation. Instead of a blockade, the display showed a rapid deployment of overwhelming force directly to strategic locations on the planetary surface, followed by surgical strikes against military and governmental targets, while civilian infrastructure remained untouched. Human approach, Thompson continued, achieves the same strategic objectives in days rather than months, with significantly reduced civilian suffering and resource expenditure. The key difference is our willingness to accept direct confrontation rather than attempting to avoid it. The assembled representatives process this information with growing comprehension. The humans weren't more primitive. They were more efficient at something the galactic community preferred not to acknowledge it needed to do. Council member Zith Ara projected another thought into the neural interface. These humans appear to have mastered the application of violence as a precise tool rather than a regrettable necessity. General Chen nodded. Our species learned early that conflict is inevitable, so we focused on conducting it as effectively as possible. We developed the capability to wage war not because we love violence, but because we understood that superior capability often prevents the need to actually use it. High Chancellor Keth Moran's energy form stabilized as he reached a decision that would reshape galactic civilization. General Chen, on behalf of the Galactic Council, I formally recognize Earth as a sovereign member species with full voting rights and territorial autonomy. Furthermore, I propose the establishment of a joint military command structure with human tactical advisors providing strategic consultation for galactic security operations. The vote was unanimous, though several representatives required extensive internal debate before confirming their positions. The galaxy had gained its first warrior species, and the humans had achieved something no previous civilization had managed: integration as equals rather than subjects. As the council session concluded, Vexathara approached General Chen privately. "General, may I ask you a personal question?" "Of course, Commander." "How do your people maintain psychological stability while remaining capable of such efficient violence?" General Chen considered the question carefully. "Commander, humans learned long ago that the capacity for violence and the wisdom to avoid using it unnecessarily are not contradictory traits. We study warfare extensively not because we seek conflict, but because understanding how to fight effectively often prevents the need to actually do so." She gestured toward the viewing ports showing Earth's distant solar system. "Our planet taught us that peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice backed by strength. We're prepared to fight for what we believe in, which means most of the time we don't have to." Vexathara's compound eyes reflected newfound respect. "And now you offer that strength in service of galactic peace." "We offer partnership," General Chen corrected gently. "We'll stand with our allies against any threat, whether it comes from outside the galaxy or from within. But we'll do it as equals, not as subjects or masters." The human delegation departed the following day, but their impact on galactic civilization had only just begun. Within months, human military advisors were stationed throughout Galactic Council territory, their tactical expertise proving invaluable in resolving conflicts that had persisted for decades. The galaxy had discovered that sometimes the most advanced approach to peace was to be very, very good at war, and humanity, it turned out, was very good indeed. The stars themselves seemed brighter as Earth took its place among the galactic community, not as another client species to be protected and guided, but as the guardians others would turn to when protection and guidance weren't enough. Humanity had proven unstoppable not through superior technology or advanced evolution, but through the simple recognition that some things are worth fighting for, and the commitment to fight for them better than anyone else could.